Introduction to Pathophysiology. The word root patho is derived from the Greek word pathos, which means suffering. The Greek word root logos means discourse, or more commonly system of a formal study, and physios pertains to function of a organism. ठीक है. Now, generally, pathophysiology is the systematic study of the functional changes in cell, tissue, and organ altered by disease and injury. Important, however, is the inextricable component of suffering. Knowledge of cellular biology as well as anatomy and physiology and the various organ system of the body is essential foundation for the study of pathophysiology. To understand pathophysiology, the student must also use principle, concept, basic knowledge from other field of study including biology, genetics, immunology, pathology, epidemiology. A large number of terms are used to focus the discussion of pathophysiology. They may be used interchangeably at times, but that does not necessarily indicate that they have the same meaning. These terms are reviewed in Table I1. So, terms and definition related to pathology. So, study of a structural alteration in cell, tissue, and organ that helps to identify the cause of disease. Pathogenesis मतलब pattern of tissue changes associated with the development of a disease. Etiology मतलब study of the cause of a disease or injury. Idiopathic मतलब disease with no identifiable cause. उसके बाद एट्रोजेनिक मतलब डिजीज एंड इंजुरी as a result of a medical intervention. क्लिनिकल मैनिफेस्टेशन मतलब साइन एंड सिम्टम. नोजोकोमियल मतलब डिजीज एक्वायर्ड एज ए कॉन्सिक्वेंस ऑफ बीइंग इन ए हॉस्पिटल एनवायरनमेंट. डायग्नोसिस मतलब नेमिंग और आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ ए डिजीज. प्रोग्नोसिस मतलब एक्सपेक्टेड आउटकम ऑफ ए डिजीज. एक्यूट डिजीज का मतलब होता है सडन अपीयरेंस ऑफ साइन एंड सिम्टम लास्टिंग ए शॉर्ट टाइम. क्रोनिक डिजीज मतलब डेवलप्ड मोर स्लोली लास्टिंग ए लॉन्ग टाइम और ए लाइफ टाइम. Remission period when clinical manifestation disappear or diminish significantly. Exacerbation मतलब periods when clinical manifestation become worse or more severe. Then sequelae, any abnormal condition that follows and are result of disease, treatment, and injury. Pathophysiology is one of the most important bridging science between the preclinical and clinical courses for students in the health sciences, and it requires in-depth study at an early stage in the curriculum. The definition or conceptual models of pathophysiology that we carry in our mind influence what we do with our observation and the rationale that we provide for our action. Therefore, the clinician must understand that although pathophysiology is a science, it also designates suffering in people. The clinician should never lose sight of this aspect of its definition. As students study clinically related science, they learn to recognize and categorize disease. From the formulation of a differential diagnosis, one understands the different clinical manifestation, the sign and symptom of certain pathologies. These understandings structure further investigation, treatment plan, and evaluation. The interaction of these activities determine clinical outcome and treatment success. Still, the concept of a disease can be inherently ambiguous and elusive. Many pathologies remain hidden and resist easy classification. One should appreciate that the naming and the diagnosis of a disease involve evaluative judgment as well as scientific fact, and that the process is as much a social endeavor as it is a scientific one. Some disease such as tuberculosis identify a highly specific causative or etiologic agent or process. Others, such as Alzheimer's disease or arthritis, indicate pathologic changes of unclear causes. There is considerably need for the more research to validate mental health diagnosis. In addition, syndrome and functional disorder simply describe multiple symptoms and signs that frequently occurs together. Does commonality exist in all these levels? The answer is yes or and no, and depends on our conception of health and disease. In the strictest sense, objective scientific fact help us know if an individual is healthy or suffering from disease and disability. A critical question remains, are we living longer, healthy lives as well as longer lives? The fraction of the United States population aged 65 and over has increased. Older Americans are living longer, and the proportion of life spent with disability is changing. A recent finding for people 65 years and older was that the proportion of life spent with disability decreased, but this finding was not shared among the younger, aging population. In the young, researchers speculate that the increase in disability with aging may have resulted from change in emphasis on mental health. The rise in autism and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and the changing pattern of a drug use over time. More studies related to these questions need to be done. An individual conception of a disease is based on personal belief and histories. Professionals and lay healer who interact with that individual and society at large. Each idea or construct has the power to influence other idea and construct. and each relationship has the ability to shape the way disease is understood and experienced. Although a discerning mind is key, education for collaboration and tolerance of uncertainty or ambiguity is necessary for changing science and understanding of a disease. Pathophysiology has great success in explaining the mechanism and clinical manifestation associated with infectious disease. Syndrome of unclear etiology such as chronic fatigue syndrome or fibromyalgia have proven to be troublesome. Even more difficult are multifactorial conditions such as atherosclerosis or type 2 diabetes mellitus, where several interacting factors contribute to the etiology. Learning how interacting factors related to one another to increase morbidity or actually cause disease contribute to an appreciation of how emerging concept revolutionize current understanding. One revolution in thought that has driven intensive research is that low level of chronic inflammation cause or contribute to many disease. The language that clinicians use to discuss disease and their manifestation is powerful. Lives are altered by a few words uttered by a clinician in a white coat or uniform. AIDS, cancer, and heart attack have become culturally ingrained symbols that portend an individual's future. Although some features are determined by scientific evidence, others are determined by subjective experience. For example, a person diagnosed with familial disease may ask, will I suffer like my mother did? This questioning influences individuals' suffering. In conclusion, pathophysiology, the understanding of disease requires descriptive evidence as well as an evaluative component regarding suffering and the language we use to describe it. Combining objective and subjective perspectives requires new conceptual model that take into account the complex interaction among the body, mind, environment and spirit. सो ये हमारा पहला चीज आज का इंट्रोडक्शन टू पैथोफिजियोलॉजी खत्म हो गया. अब पार्ट वन में सेंट्रल कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ पैथोफिजियोलॉजी जिसमें हम सेल एंड टिश्यू को देखेंगे. तो इसमें यूनिट वन में सेल होता है, यूनिट टू में जीन एनवायरनमेंट इंटरेक्शन, एपिजेनेटिक्स होता है, मैकेनिज्म ऑफ सेल्फ डिफेंस, सेलुलर प्रोलिफरेशन जिसे हम कैंसर कहते हैं. ठीक है, सेलुलर प्रोलिफरेशन कैंसर. ओके, तो पहला चैप्टर वन हो जाएगा हमारे लिए सेलुलर बायोलॉजी. सेलुलर बायोलॉजी में प्रोकैरियोट, यूकैरियोट, सेलुलर फंक्शन, स्ट्रक्चर एंड फंक्शन ऑफ सेलुलर कंपोनेंट, न्यूक्लियस, साइटोप्लाज्मिक ऑर्गेनेल, प्लाज्मा मेम्ब्रेन, सेलुलर रिसेप्टर, सेल टू सेल एडेशन, एक्स्ट्रासेलुलर मैट्रिक्स, बेसमेंट मेम्ब्रेन, स्पेशलाइज्ड सेल जंक्शन, cellular communication and signal transduction, extracellular messenger and channels, regulation, second messenger, cellular metabolism, role of adenosine triphosphate, food and production of cellular energy, oxidative phosphorylation. Okay, then membrane transport में cellular intake and output, electrolyte as a solute, transport by vesicle formation, movement of electrical impulses, membrane potential, cellular reproduction में cell cycle, phases of mitosis and cytokinesis, the cell cycle control system, control of cell division, cell growth, mitogens, growth factor and survival factor, DNA damage response, block cell division. उसके बाद टिश्यू में टिश्यू फॉर्मेशन, टाइप ऑफ टिश्यू. ओके, नाउ so all body function depend on the integrity of cell. Therefore, an understanding of cellular biology is intrinsically necessary for an understanding of a disease. An overwhelming amount of information is revealing how cells behave as a multicellular social organism. At the heart of cellular biology is cellular communication, that is cellular cross talk. How message originate and are transmitted, received, interpreted and used by the cell. This streamlined conversation between, among, and within cell maintain cellular function and specialization. Intercellular signal allow each cell to determine its position and specialized role. Cell must demonstrate a chemical fondness for other cell and their surrounding environment to maintain the integrity of the entire organism. When they no longer tolerate this fondness, the conversation breaks down and the cell either adapt, मतलब something altering function, or become vulnerable to isolation, injury, disease, even death. Now coming to the prokaryotes, eukaryotes. Living cells generally are divided into two major classes, eukaryotes and prokaryotes. The cell of higher animal and plant are eukaryotes, as are the single-celled organism, fungi, protozoa, and most algae. Prokaryotes include cyanobacteria, blue-green algae, bacteria, rickettsia. Prokaryotes traditionally were studied as core subject of molecular biology. Current emphasis is on the eukaryotic cell. Much of its structure and function has no counterpart in bacterial cell. Eukaryotes. Eu मतलब good, carrion means nucleus, also spelled eukaryotes, are larger and have more extensive intracellular anatomy and organization than do prokaryotes. Eukaryotic cells have a characteristic set of membrane bound intracellular compartments called organelles that include a well defined nucleus. Prokaryotes contain no organelles and their nuclear material is not encased by a nuclear membrane. Prokaryotic cells are characterized by lack of distinct nucleus. Besides having structural differences, prokaryotic and eukaryotic cells differ in chemical composition and biochemical activity. The nuclei of a prokaryotic cell carry genetic information in a single circular chromosome and they lack a class of a protein called as histone, which in eukaryotic cell binds with deoxyribonucleic acid, that is DNA, and are involved in the supercoiling of DNA. See figure 1.2. We now understand that the loops and coiling of DNA are important for many diseases. Eukaryotic cells have several chromosomes. Protein production or synthesis in the two classes of cell also differs because of major structural differences in ribonucleic acid protein complexes. Other distinctions include differences in mechanism transport across the outer cellular membrane and differences in the enzyme content. Now coming to the cellular function. Cells become specialized through the process of differentiation or maturation, so that some cell eventually perform one kind of function and other cell perform other function. Cell with a highly developed function such as movement often lack some other properties such as hormone production, which is more highly developed in some other type of specialized cell. The eight chief cellular function follows movement. Muscle cell can generate forces that produce motion. Muscles that are attached to the bone produce limb movement, whereas those that enclose hollow tubes or cavities move empty content when they contract. For example, the contraction of smooth muscle cell surrounding blood vessel changes the diameter of the vessels. The contraction of muscles in walls of the urinary bladder expels urine. Coming to the conductivity. Conduction as a response to stimulus is manifested by a wave of excitation and electrical potential that passes along the surface of the cells to reach its other parts. Conductivity is the chief function of the nerve cell. Then coming to the metabolic absorption, all cell takes in and use nutrients and other substance from their surrounding cell of the intestine and the kidney are specialized to carry out absorption. Cells of kidney tubules reabsorb fluid and synthesize protein. Intestinal epithelial cell reabsorb fluids and synthesize protein enzyme. Secretion. Certain cells such as mucus gland cells can synthesize new substance from the substance they absorb and then secrete the new substance to serve as need elsewhere. Cells of the adrenal gland, testis, ovary can secrete hormonal steroids. Excretion. All cell can rid themselves of waste product resulting from metabolic breakdown of nutrients. membrane bound sacs जिसे हम लाइसोसोम कहते हैं within cell contain enzyme that break down or digest large molecules, turning them into waste product that are released from the cell. Respiration. Cell absorb oxygen which is used to transfer nutrient into energy in the form of adenosine triphosphate. Cellular respiration or oxidation occur in organelle called as mitochondria. Then reproduction. Tissue growth occur as cells enlarge and reproduce themselves even without growth. Tissue maintenance requires that new cells be produced to replace cells that are lost normally through cellular death. Not all cells are capable of a continuous division. Then communication. Communication is vital for cell to survive as a society of cell. Pancreatic cell, for instance, secrete and release insulin necessary to signal muscle cell to absorb sugar from the blood for energy. Constant communication allows the maintenance of a dynamic steady state. Then coming to the structure and function of a cellular component. Structure and function of cellular component. Figure 1.1 shows a typical eukaryotic cell. It consists of a three component and outer membrane called as plasma membrane और इसे प्लाज्मा बोला जाता है. A fluid filling called cytoplasm. The intracellular organ or organelles which are membrane bound and include the nucleus. Researchers are astounded by the advances in microscopy and computer software that allows resolution to the nanoscales. Cells seems to come alive with the molecular world more visible. Understanding structure and function will reveal, for example, how the cell responds to mechanical forces or emerges from different gene expression pattern. The overall impact on biology is huge. Now figure 1.1, typical or composite cell. At its interpretation of cell structure, B. Color enhanced electron micrograph of cell both shows the many mitochondria known as the power plant of the cell. Note 2. The innumerable dots bordering the endoplasmic reticulum. These are ribosomes, the cell's protein factories. ओके, ये सब होता है। देन उसके बाद यहाँ पर न्यूक्लियस आ जाता है। द न्यूक्लियस विच इज सराउंडेड बाय द साइटोप्लाज्म and generally is located in the center of the cell is the largest membrane bound organelle. Okay, सो आज के लिए यहाँ तक। ठीक है, आज का डेट क्या है? 4 मार्च। थैंक्स फॉर वॉचिंग।